What does financial freedom mean to each of you? Like, with that phrase, what does that mean? I know you teach it, but what does that mean to you? And why is it so important?
Financial freedom. Well, I'm not sure who it was, but it was Tim Ferriss who talked about being a time billionaire. We talk about being a money billionaire, but I love this idea of being a time billionaire, so that you can, you talked about it, do what you want with who you want for as long as you want, whenever you want.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What about you, Jay?
I love that. Like you said it, I associate that with Morgan Housel, who's the first person that articulated that so perfectly. I was like, wow, that's the definition of health and wealth, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it without your health either.
Yep.
When we wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, it was having the unearned income to finance your mission in life without having to work.
Yes.
And so, like, I love the be able to do what you want with whom you want for as long as you want, whenever you want.
Yep.
That is the freedom part, which has always been a part of it. But the longer we're on this journey, the more I connect it to being able to put more into the mission.
Yeah.
Because you figure out at some point, like, we're kind of done.
Yeah.
So what do we strive? How do we make ourselves better by striving? It's got to be for someone else.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know, like, how do we teach people to go there faster?
Yeah. Yeah, there was an episode, actually. In fact, I mentioned that quote earlier about you can only connect the dots looking backwards, and I'm going to connect one right here, is that I actually listened to an episode that you did with Gary of, like, Think Like a CEO. Am I saying that name right?
Yeah.
There was an episode where you said, I don't know if it was him or you, but you were talking about that line about, financial freedom. I think you asked Gary, like, how do you define financial freedom? And he said it's, your bills are paid. He said it way more eloquently than I ever would, but your bills are paid so you can do your mission.
Right.
Right. And
that's the epigram in The Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
Okay.
It's the unearned income to finance your mission in life without having to work.
Yeah.
And
that made a huge, huge impact on my life.
Yeah, it's like enough passive income to fund your perfect life.
Yeah. It's powerful because I think a lot of people, especially in our real estate world, they just have the dreams of the big boat and the big car and the big house and the big plane, and maybe that plays into it. I mean, good for people who have the jet. I'm gonna have a jet someday. I'm name it, claiming it, right? I'm gonna have fun on it. But
it's a hollow journey.
Yeah,
it can be a hollow journey.
If you're playing the "I'll be happy, win" game, it's really dangerous, right? And a lot of people think, I'll have respect when, I'll be happy when, whatever. There's like an emotional connection to the achievement that's not promised.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it for yourself, I don't pretend to think that you'll be happy when you get the jet. You're already one of the happiest people I've met. But that's something different. That's some other, like, milestone. But I just think there's a lot of people that we know, especially in our industry, that are working for money so that people see them attaining the things with money. Yeah. And then you get there and then it has to be something else. Like, that's a well that never gets full.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll be happy when you get the jet.
Yeah. I will be happy when I get the jet.
It's kind of like having a yacht. You want
especially when you're
a friend that's got a yacht.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
what it is. Yeah, it's funny. Gary Vaynerchuk once said how, he talks a lot about buying the New York Jets. So it's his thing. He talks all about, I'm going to buy the Jets someday. It's the Jets, right? Yeah, he's always talking about the Jets, right? And then I heard a line once. He's like, I don't actually care about buying the Jets. It's just a fun thing, and he might actually buy it someday. He says, but he might not. But it's a cool, like, mission that's so big to say, like, that's gonna keep me, like, it's something in the distance I can swim toward. When you're out in the ocean, you're like swimming, you're like, well, that's the lighthouse. I can keep going towards that. And so he's like, I don't actually care about the Jets.
Yeah.
He just cares about having somewhere to head toward. And so the literal, he's talking about the Jets. I'm talking about a jet. I'm like, a jet is almost like I use that as almost a
it's like a metaphor.
Yeah, almost a metaphor for just, like, financial success
Stretching
in general.
yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, because the way you have your value set, like, how much wealth would you have to amass for that to actually be something that you would say yes to?
A no-brainer for you.
Yeah.
It's a way of thinking really, really big.
Yes, exactly what that is.
Warren Buffett's team made him buy a private jet, right? And do you know what he named it?
No.
I think it's called the Indefensible.
That's funny.
Right? But they just said, like, it's not just about being an asset.
Yep.
It's about your time.
Yeah.
And when you're operating at that level, your time's so valuable that, saving 4 hours instead of even flying first class to going private, it was material. His dollars per hour, I mean, can you imagine?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that once. I never even thought of the jet until somebody explained it that way. They said, what's 2 hours with your kids? And they said, if you travel, 3-4 times a month, which I probably travel that much, and they're like, you're losing 8-10 hours a month with your kids.
It's a lot.
On, having to get the TSA early and all that stuff. And they said, what's that worth?
Well, especially you only get a few hours a day with your kids.
Yeah.
You know?
And so what's it worth? Yeah. It's potentially doubling the amount of free time you have with your kids or your family. And they're like, what is that worth? Is that worth? And, we're real estate people, so we tend to find ways to hack it anyway. So it's like, if I can find a way to rent it out when I'm not using it, can I get a free jet? Probably. Do I get the tax write-off? Of course. Like, when you start thinking how, instead of, should I? So
you just need someone to sponsor a jet for you.
Yes, there we go. That's like
hello, universe.
Yeah, come on, we're gonna get it. So we mentioned the word happiness earlier.
Brought to you by Beardy Brew.
Yeah, Beardy Brew. Thank you for it, Beardy Brew. The only coffee with a real piece of beard hair in every cup. That's not our slogan.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it's great coffee. So
very earthy.
Very organic.
Yes.
A little hairy. What is happiness? If you had to define, put a definition on happiness, how would you define it?
Go ahead.
I mean, you go first.
Well,
so we wrote about this in the one thing. I think happiness is that feeling you get, and it's often temporary, around the things that bring you joy. And we just tried to be really careful distinguishing between being happy and fulfillment. And fulfillment is about the feeling you get when you're making progress on your mission towards your big goals. And there's something, even it's been a horrible day, but it was good work.
Yeah. And
so it doesn't always feel happy. And so I try to focus on that. When we get to my favorite book, ultimately happiness is a choice. So that's how I would fill in that blank. Happiness is a choice. You can choose to give yourself happiness. And that's probably the most important, aha of my lifetime is yes, this thing happened. It doesn't have to affect how I feel about everything else.
Yeah. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, let's go with that.
Well, you made me go first. I was sitting there all internal on the question.
Well, and I think what I think about what comes to mind for me is so many people choose comfort over this idea of happiness. They confuse comfort with happiness.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. I think happiness comes from fulfillment. I mean, we are financially free, so we don't need to work. But I mean, really, am I just going to sit around all day and do nothing? No, I'm not. But for a lot of people, that is their choice. They think that comfort is what is going to bring them happiness. But so many people who are quote unquote comfortable, they're miserable.
Yeah. Well, I get this question all the time, and I'm going to throw it at you, but hopefully with a different attitude. I get this question of, Brandon, when's enough? Why are you working so much? Why are you working so hard? Why are you trying to build another business or grow your real estate? Why do you need 10 billion of real estate instead of billion? And there's this attitude of, I'm doing something wrong. Why can't I just be satisfied? I'm assuming you guys have gotten that as well. What's your answer to that? Why do you still do it?
Well,
You briefly entertained enough was enough. Remember that?
Well, I do go through that. I think that's a very real question. And I think if somebody feels that way, I think that's okay too.
Yeah.
I do believe that when you stop growing, you do start dying.
Yeah.
So whatever growth looks like for you, if you want to quit your job and learn how to become a Asian stick fighting expert or whatever, then you're still growing in that arena. But I like to think of myself as a work of art, which is I'm just fine the way I am.
Yeah.
And a work in progress. So both. And it's hard if you're a striver, it's hard to hold both of those things because so often we never look back and appreciate where we've come from. And so you have to be purposeful about that.
It's fascinating. We can do that with our kids, right? I've talked about this on previous episodes, but you can look at your son and say, I love you 100% exactly as you are. I love you exactly. I'm looking at him in the eyes. Your son is in the room, actually.
We love you, Gus.
Yeah, Gus,
Yes.
We love you. Exactly as you are. I'm perfectly 100% happy with where you are right now. But it doesn't mean I want you to stay there forever. I would love to see you grow. I'd love to see you get a career and get, family and all that would be great. So there's this duality there where we can be perfectly 100% content, but also be okay with ambition. And I think somewhere in there lies the answer, but it's easier for us to do it with our kids, isn't it, than it is to do with ourselves.